I have a confession to make. I'm sorry, but I lied to you. Because in my previous video I said that Kherson will be liberated approximately at the end of this week. But well, as you can see, it has been fully liberated in less than 48 hours. And today I will be showing you the heartwarming footage from these liberated settlements and the Kherson city itself. In addition to that, the Antonovskiy bridge has completely collapsed, and now it's the moment of truth to see if this withdrawal of Russians from Kherson was a trap or not. And finally, Russia wants to end this special military operation through negotiations. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude, Kherson це Ukraina. And to begin with, just take a look at this map which shows the changes in territorial control in Kherson region over the last 48 hours. Even the most conservative estimations could not predict that this whole region will be deoccupied this fast. And now let's see some photos and videos from these recently liberated settlements. And our first picture of a Ukrainian soldier with his flag comes to us from Kacharivka. Next we go to its neighbor Mylovye, where we can see victorious Ukrainian soldiers as well. Going a little bit to the south, we have a picture from liberated Novokairy. And then here is a video of a Ukrainian soldier removing a Soviet flag from the occupied Shaslive. Our next picture comes to us from extremely important liberated Berislav. And in several minutes I will tell you exactly why this settlement is so crucial for Ukrainians. Next we go to Chaikine, where we can see the local residents meeting their Ukrainian liberators. Going more to the west, we can see a video of Ukrainian soldier holding his flag in liberated Klapaya. Then we move to the south, where we can see the residents of Belozerka removing Russian propagandistic posters from their billboards. And as we move closer and closer to Kherson, here is a video from the occupied Chernobyevka. And just before we see some videos in chronological order from the city of Kherson itself, here is some more footage from its surrounding areas. And first of all, here is a video from Azov soldiers who also participated in the liberation of Kherson. And then right here we can see a picture of a Ukrainian flag which was installed in the entrance to Kherson region. And ultimately, here is a picture of a Ukrainian liberator being surrounded by the residents of Shumensky district of Kherson city. And right now, please allow me to show you some emotional and heartwarming footage in chronological order from the liberation of Kherson city. First of all, right here we have a video from the inside of a Ukrainian armored vehicle. And we can just see how the local residents meet their liberators. Ukrainians continued to drive towards Kherson city, and pretty much in every settlement they have been stopped by its residents, given hugs and flowers. And in the meantime, in the city itself, since early morning the crowd started gathering in one of its main squares, and people were just simply waiting for Ukrainian forces to show up. While waiting, the residents of Kherson were also removing these Russian propagandistic posters from their billboards. And also, they brought this huge Ukrainian flag and uncovered this along one of the main streets where the Ukrainian forces were expected to arrive. And soon enough, Ukrainian soldiers started arriving inside the city, and one of the first flags they installed was at the local police department. And finally, Ukrainian heroes showed up on the main square of Kherson city. And I mean, just take a look at this genuine happiness. This is the way civilians meet their liberators, which is not even close to the reaction that Russian propagandists were showing us how Ukrainians were meeting their alleged Russian saviors. Today, pretty much the entire Ukraine was celebrating the liberation of Kherson. And right here, for example, we have a video from its capital Kiev, where we can see even more happy people. And by the way, to make it even more ridiculous for the Russian army, here is the official report by the Ministry of Defense of Russia regarding the situation in Kherson. And it says that Russia was able to withdraw to the left side of Dnipro river every single soldier. In addition to that, while retreating, speaking, Russia did not lose any single unit of military equipment or any single military vehicle. And soon you will see that this is a complete lie. And finally, and this is the most ridiculous one, according to the Ministry of Defense of Russia, in the last 48 hours, Ukraine was not able to advance more than 10 kilometers. It is pretty obvious that in the next couple of days there will be many important events and statements, and most likely we will also know for sure whether this was a trap of Russians or not. And if you don't want to miss any of these updates, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. You can also follow me on Instagram because the weekend is coming and I'll try to post some stories. Alright, and now let's see some more mind-blowing footage. And speaking about blowing, this early morning around 6 AM local time, Antonovskiy bridge has been completely destroyed. On this video right here we can see the final explosion which ultimately collapsed the bridge. And here is one of the first pictures showing the current condition of the bridge. And according to Russians, it was them who destroyed Antonovskiy bridge, which put an end to complete withdrawal of the Russian forces from the northern part of Kherson region. In addition to that, as you can see right here, Russians also terminated their own pontoons. And then right here we can see one of the last batch of Russian soldiers crossing Dnipro river. But Antonovskiy bridge was not the only one which has been destroyed by Russians during their retreat. Right here we have the satellite image of Antonovskiy bridge itself, and then the next one is the satellite image of its railroad part. Going a little bit to the northeast, we arrive to Dnipro, and as you can see from this satellite image, Russians collapsed this bridge as well. And finally we move to Nova Kakhovka, and on this satellite image we can see Kakhovka hydropower plant and its dam, which suffered some damages, but it is still standing. So back to the report by the Ministry of Defense of Russia, which said that they did not abandon any single military vehicle or soldier. And right now I will show you why it is a lie. Right here we have a video from Chernobyevka airport, and as you can see, Russians literally left fully functioning helicopter. In addition to that, if you remember from my yesterday's episode, Russians were leaving their tanks and armored personnel carriers just on the road. And then right here we have a picture of a Russian soldier dressed as civilian who is hiding inside a residential building, which pretty much confirms the fact that one of the last orders Russian soldiers received was to find civilian clothes and do whatever they want to save their own lives. But anyways, while retreating, some Russian soldiers did what they do the best, which is stealing stuff and destroying evidence. Right here we can see the condition of one of the apartments inside Kherson city, and according to its owners, everything of a value has been stolen. And in this video we can see one of administrative buildings which Russians were using as their temporary headquarters, and it is on fire. And according to the locals, it was Russians who set this on fire to destroy the evidence. In this next video we can see a Russian soldier who already retreated to another side of Dnipro river, and he is saying that the situation is far worse than anyone can imagine. He says that the supplies are extremely low and that the weapons and military vehicles are very bad and old. And what he implies is that it will be close to impossible to retake Kherson no matter what Russian authorities say. And besides that, he also says that he will not be surprised that in case this attitude continues, Russians will also lose Crimea. And yes, these are the words of the actual Russian soldier on the front lines, not some general or officer who is sitting in his nice little cozy office in Moscow, completely unaware of the situation. And yes, just like yesterday, Ukrainians did not let Russians to retreat in peace, because as you can see from this video, they continued to shell retreating forces. And the response of Russians was pretty much exactly the same what they usually do. And so, as you can see from this video, in revenge to Ukrainians targeting Russian military units, Russians destroyed a residential building in Mykolaiv. And yeah, I have so much more footage which I was simply not allowed to use on YouTube. And so I uploaded some of it to my Discord and the rest will be on my Patreon. And if you want to see this unacceptable footage, the links will be down below. Alright, so what do we have at this very moment and what is the most probable course of action in the nearest future? First of all, the biggest activity of Russians at this very moment is happening in Oleshki. And reportedly, this is where they bring the most of their equipment and forces, which to be honest makes sense as it is right across the river from Kherson city. At the same time, Ukrainians were able to fully liberate Berislav. And if you remember from the beginning of my video, this is one of the most crucial cities. And here is why. Retaking Berislav was supposed to open the way to Ukrainians to Kozatsky, but Ukrainians were able to deoccupy both these cities in one day, so it's even better. And taking Kozatsky gives access to the second most important bridge in Kherson region. The first one is being Antonovskiy bridge, currently destroyed, and the second one is the bridge in Nova Kakhovka. And if Ukrainians want to cross Dnipro river in the nearest future, doing so in Kakhovka region is much easier, because as mentioned previously, the biggest concentration of Russian forces at this very moment is located in Oleshki. And I mean, Kakhovka is still protected, but not as much. And unlike Antonovskiy bridge, most likely Russians will not risk destroying bridge in Nova Kakhovka. And soon you will know why. So, as soon as Ukraine can cross Dnipro river, and hopefully it happens sooner than later, it opens them the directions to the rest of the south. And most likely they will prioritize the deoccupation of the rest of Kherson region first, before going to the east. And obviously they will leave the Crimean peninsula for dessert. And speaking about Crimea, according to this report by the Institute for the Study of War, Russians started to already build the second lines of defense in Crimea. And if you remember, just yesterday I was showing you the satellite images from Armyansk and Chonhar, where Russians were already digging trenches, which pretty much shows us the value of Crimean Peninsula to Putin as his most important occupied territory. And now the moment of truth. Was this retreat by Russians a trap? Will they ruin Kherson and destroy Kakhovka Dam? Well, there is always a chance, because the Russian military tactics has already proven itself as unpredictable and irrational. But if they decide to do it, how much sense will it make? So, first of all, as we already know, destroying Kakhovka Dam will lead to the flooding of this entire area, which includes Russian military positions across Dnipro river. So, does it make sense for them to do it? And a normal person would say no. But there is very little normal about Russian military orders. Okay, then what about the city of Kherson itself? Will Russians destroy it? And so my question here is, isn't Kherson supposed to be a part of Russia? According to Russia, of course. Why would they shell allegedly their own territory? But at the same time, if we see Putin signing a decree in the nearest future excluding Kherson from these recently occupied territories, then, as ridiculous as it sounds, it may happen. So, what is then the next step? First of all, according to some delusional people in Russia, they will be able to retake Kherson back. But according to those who still have a little bit of common sense left, they might want to end this special military operation through negotiations. And this came to us from no one else other than the press secretary of Russia, Dmitry Peskov, and the deputy minister of foreign affairs, Sergei Rybkov. So as you can see, closer and closer people to Putin talk about the necessity to end this war through peace talks. And yes, they are ready to negotiate without giving any of their conditions. But no matter what happens, already right now, regular Russians, especially those who are supporting the war, they started expressing their utmost dissatisfaction. I mean, just imagine if your government was brainwashing you for several months about the necessity of this war and about the superiority of your army, and now suddenly you start losing. And not just losing, but giving up huge chunks of crucial territories which allegedly belong to Russia. And ultimately, I personally expect that there'll be a lot of pressure on Putin, both from the outside and especially from the inside, to end this war as soon as possible. If you want to support my work, please consider becoming my channel member, use a PayPal link, or become my Patreon, where you'll receive additional content. All the other useful links can be found to the right and down below. Thank you so much for your attention, товарищи, and see you on Monday.